It is my pleasure to welcome each and every one of you to this roundtable discussion focused on the cannabis industry, and more specifically on the remarkable opportunities and the potential for advancement that the industry presents to women everywhere. We have an awesome panel of fourth floor members who are all doing great things in the cannabis industry, who are joining us today. So last time I'll say this, please keep yourselves muted, get your questions ready. We'll do our best to answer them as the discussion goes on. Before we dive in, just a very brief word about the fourth floor. For those of you who don't know, we are a market network getting women onto boards and cap tables of companies of all sizes, including startups, as a way to initiate and advance for-profit board careers and help women entrepreneurs access funding and growth opportunities by leveraging their advisory boards and their governing boards and our backroom investment club. So if you are interested in learning more, join us for a platform tour. We will put that link in the chat now. And please also, you can also apply for membership via our platform. If you're a founder, it's only $1 as long as you're willing to participate in the board seat exchange and or in the backroom investment club. Please also follow us on LinkedIn. Consider attending our June board bootcamp. We'll also put the discount code in the chat. That's a great introduction and overview to everything that we're all about. Finally, I just have to mention our Pay It Forward initiative. We'll also put some information in the chat about that. This is, it's a framework that it provides all companies with an easy way to participate in our board seat exchange. They can earn DE&I credits, they earn a verified seal, and they're able to directly support at least 3 for-profit board careers for women by participating, and it's great for companies. So if you want to nominate yourself, nominate your employer, that is a great way to become a board candidate at the fourth floor and avoid a personal membership fee. So we would love to talk to you more about that. We're going to put all those links in the chat, after this discussion, so please reach out. But enough about me and enough about the fourth floor. I want to get to the point of today, which is why we're all here, which is the cannabis industry as a new frontier for women. We're really excited to talk a little bit about these incredible opportunities and the potential, for a number of reasons. Cannabis industry, it does have all this potential. It's sort of the Wild West. It can elevate comparatively a high number of women to C-level and decision-making roles. There's also just real potential for enterprising women, all over the board to soar. And so today we're just going to hear directly from several pioneering cannabis entrepreneurs and executives within our membership about what they're building and why they're pushing for gender diversity as well in the industry. It is my absolute pleasure to first introduce you to your moderator for today's panel discussion, Margeaux Bruner, Director of ESG and Diversity, Equity and Inclusion at Trulieve and founder of HOLI Smokables. And just a very quick shout out to Trulieve before, Margeaux, I turn it over to you. I just need to mention that Trulieve, it is the largest woman-founded, woman-led cannabis company, and it is a gold-level Pay It Forward partner at the fourth floor. That Trulieve has put its money where its mouth is when it comes to DE&I and will directly support 9 for-profit board careers for women in 2022. So thank you, Trulieve. Just have to give that shout out. And so now, without further ado, let me turn the stage over to you, Margeaux, to introduce yourself and your fellow panelists who will join us here in the spotlight as you introduce them. So take it away, Margeaux.
Hello, thank you so much. Happy 420, everybody, and welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here with us today. As mentioned, I am the founder of HOLI Smokables. That is how I came to be a participant in the fourth floor. I then was hired for Trulieve as their director of ESG and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I brought them on board during Women's History Month because we are a women-led company and there are a number of initiatives. They're the most women of any job I've ever worked in, actually, in Trulieve, not just in the cannabis industry specifically. So it's an excellent opportunity to be a participant in this particular industry, both as an entrepreneur and as an executive. And without further ado, I'm going to go essentially panelist by panelist, and if you can introduce yourself and describe what you do right now and what prompted your transition into the cannabis industry. And so I'm going to start from, I can see Lucinda first, Lucinda Cross of Lucida. Could you please introduce yourself and also, what prompted your transition to the cannabis industry?
Of course, thanks, Margeaux. So my name is Lucinda Cross. I'm a co-founder of a Curious community called LucidaClub. We're based in Boston, Massachusetts, and we launched in January 2020. So we're very new to the market and to the industry. We focus on helping the community, people that don't know about cannabis, they don't know what products they're interested in, to be guided and supported through their journey to transitioning to utilizing cannabis in their daily lives. And that's one of our key missions, is to ensure that we bring cannabis into everyone's life with a positive outcome. So what brought me to cannabis was curiosity. My business partner is based in Boston. We started the conversation, gosh, I think 2019, really. Legalization happened, obviously 2018 in Massachusetts. And we started to become curious. And as a woman, I could see that the industry was really unsupported by women. It was very male focused, particularly in Massachusetts then. We have a few more women in Massachusetts, which is a really good thing happening, particularly over the last 12 months. So really, it was curiosity. And for me, I suffer with epilepsy. So I really wanted to seek out something that could help me medically myself. So hopefully that answers your question, Margeaux.
Thank you so much. Next, Kebra Smith of CannaHealth. Kebra, can you, tell us what you do today and what prompted your transition into this particular industry?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me on this platform on 420. It's a privilege and an honor to share with you all today. My name is Kebra Smith-Bolden. I am a registered nurse, first and foremost. And I began in the cannabis industry several years ago. I started as a networker, and I opened the Connecticut chapter of Women Grow. And then I opened CannaHealth in 2017, which are medical cannabis certifying centers all throughout Connecticut and outside of Connecticut as well. We're in 3 states in a district. And currently I am pursuing licenses in the state of Connecticut through partnerships, and am very excited about being able to be a change agent and give back to my community and create jobs and opportunities.
Thank you so much. Eunice of HiVi, can you please describe, what your business is today and what you transitioned from previously?
Yeah, thank you, Margeaux, and thank you for having me. I'm Eunice. I'm the founder and CEO of HiVi, which is short for High Vibrations. HiVi is a direct-to-consumer, education-backed, and data-powered cannabis platform that helps wellness seekers discover and shop the right cannabis solutions for them. Our proprietary cannabis concierge offers personalized matches for the user based on their unique needs and goals and the product's formulations. And we'll be launching delivery and e-commerce this July to actually get those products in consumers' hands. We're here to educate people on cannabis in the right way, minimize the trial and error when it comes to discovering cannabis for your wellness needs, and help us all vibrate higher with plant medicine. My transition from the fashion industry to cannabis actually happened due to my personal experience with as a consumer. Some of you know this, but I actually didn't smoke my first joint until I was 30 years old. I was the one who fully subscribed to the stigma, did not have the education to understand how beneficial and healing this plant could be, but it changed the course of my life. And I wanted more and more people, especially women, especially those who are looking to better themselves, discover that cannabis is a natural option. And so that's why I came in. And the more entrenched I became in the space, the more I realized how inequitable it was and how there was a lot of, gaps in quality and trust. And so I'm here to kind of bring that all together in the HiVi ecosystem and make it very easy for everyone, both inside the industry and not. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to do a brief offshoot. There were so many things that were mentioned, in that brief introduction. Thank you so much. Kebra mentioned Women Grow. Like, Actually, this is a very male-dominated industry, but I think I've been gifted in some ways in that I have almost always, since day one, existed in an ecosystem of women. That has been very, very, very integral part of my success here. I think about 6 years ago, I became a market leader for an organization called Women Grow. And at the time, there were 35 chapters of Women Grow, and we would all host a monthly networking event in our respective markets. And then we would come together and we'd meet each other. And that's how I met Kebra. I was a market leader in Michigan. Kebra was a market leader in Connecticut. We happened to connect and have been kind of thick as thieves since then. But were it not for that introduction, I think that has been, a huge, huge part of my success here. And so I'm going to go the same pattern as before, but, just how do you feel about this particular industry? It is quite male dominated. How do you make your way here, and how do you encourage other women to participate in the industry? Starting with Lucinda.
I think it's a really interesting point, very close to all of our hearts here. But for me, I think it's really about partnering with female-focused brands and building your own community of women around us. And we've got our own community here. And myself, obviously being very new to the industry, only launching a few months ago, just attracting 3 CBD brands, all women owned. So setting a precedent and really bringing, I think, all of our great minds together. It's really important to me, especially being over here in England and over the pond, as they say, to be able to bring more women to our own community from an education point of view, from a consumption point of view, but also from a business point of view. And here in England, I've been part of a lot of women's networks. And so for me, meeting more women over the pond and getting to know all you guys, but I think it's just really building brick by brick and bringing more women into the industry and educating the professional women, particularly about the benefits of the plant and how it can actually have a place in all of our lives.
Thank you so much, Kebra.
My way that I found my place in this industry was staying true to myself. So I leveraged my medical knowledge and my career to find a place in this industry. And trust me, there was no welcome mats. There wasn't any invitations. I had to basically make a space for myself. I didn't have a lot of money. I could not buy or purchase a license and a business here in the state, because that's what they are a lot of times, a lot of pay to play opportunities, and I didn't have that benefit. So I had to really lean on my own abilities and what I knew I could do very well, and that was be a nurse and be able to effectively educate and help create policies that would help our community. And so that's the way in which I found my space, and I think that translates to anyone, male or female, but especially as women, we have to understand our power and our abilities and our intuitiveness, and trust that, when we feel like we belong here, we're being led here. And so just to be able to stay focused and find your space and find your tribe, your community, as Margeaux said, for us, it was Women Grow. And we were able to use those resources and those connections to expand our network and really be able to be experts in this industry. And so as people are coming, to us to want to engage now in this industry, it's important that we share that with them. Don't try to recreate the wheel. This is not going to be, something that you have to do something totally different. You can do what you're doing and be successful in this industry.
Thank you.
And I just want to, mirror everything that Lucinda and Kebra said, where this industry is rapidly growing, but it's still so early, right? It's still such a nascent industry. And so there's a lot happening. There's a lot of noise, people trying and experimenting different things. And I think it can be easily be intimidating or overwhelming as new players in this space, because you feel like you have to catch up or do what everybody else is doing. But I think I take a different approach in that, you know, I take my experience from outside this industry. I take my power as a woman who as a consumer understands what we need and what fellow women need, and I bring it in as innovative thinking into this industry. I think it's really important to find your people, right? Like Lucinda mentioned, it's networking with like-minded founders or other members of the entire cannabis supply chain so that we can build together, right? They say, what is it? The rising tide lifts all ships. We're trying to build a different future for this industry that doesn't subscribe to like the stoner bro culture. And I think if we all work together, we can make that our future.
Thank you so much. I just did it's 4:20, so like we're back to back. I just did a panel before this one, and someone asked me like, how did I get into this industry? And it wasn't a straight walk for me. Like I just knew it was what I was supposed to do. And then I became relentless and partially obsessed, probably to some degree, and use that energy
Definitely
really to, you know, I use that energy to really move me forward. Even when I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, I was just really hungry for information. I was showing up everywhere, you know, uninvited. I was on every webinar, you know, kind of known to man. Like, what was your journey like here in pursuing information and how to become an entrepreneur in this particular space?
I think I can safely say that, you know, I didn't start out thinking I would become this massive, energetic, passionate, obsessed person about this industry. I really didn't. You know, it really started as a conversation, my business partner and I, who are working on a solar energy. So sustainability has been important to me all through my career, my own business here in the UK. But I never expected to land on something that I could become so passionate and, you know, slightly obsessed about, to be honest, slightly addicted. You know, we hate to use that word here, but it's true. It's addictive because you just want to get hold of it and build and build and build. So, you know, it was kind of by accident. You know, I obviously here in the UK, we have CBD that's legal. So it was becoming a real kind of boom thing. And I had no idea really what was going on. And I suddenly discovered that CBD could really help me with stress and anxiety and all of those things. And then it was like, okay, that's CBD, now THC products. So really it's been a journey from, as Eunice said, you know, I haven't smoked a joint probably in, I don't know, 20 years, you know, so it's a really new thing for me, but it's just, it's like, I'm like a dog with a bone, I think, with it, Margeaux. And I just love the energy and passion, you know, from you three ladies, and there are so many more of us out there. So really it was by accident, but it's hard not to get involved. It's hard not to put the mission together. And I love the words of find our tribe. I think that's a gorgeous thing to take away from today, because we're, you know, we need to keep adding people. So I think it was just by accident, but it's, as I say, it's become my passion, my daily focus, to get more and more, particularly women, consuming or at least starting that journey.
So my journey was a very interesting one. You know, the first thing that I knew for sure when I decided I wanted to be in the cannabis industry, having been a Black woman for several decades at this point, was that I knew that I needed to prove why I'm here. So I wanted to go to school. I wanted to have education. I wanted to be able to be in a room, and when they start asking me questions about this plant, whether it was the science of this plant, whether it was about prohibition, whether it was about its history, whatever it was, I wanted to be able to answer that. So the first thing that I did was educate myself. And let me tell you, that in and of itself was a sacrifice. There was no schools in Connecticut, so every weekend I drove to Massachusetts for 2 hours each way to go to classes all day for 12 weeks. You know, so this was my set. Then, you know, once I got all this information, I was ready to share it. And so again, like Margeaux and I both referenced Women Grow, which is a great organization. I was able to find a way in which to spread the knowledge that I had learned, but it still was very difficult. Even I was working as a registered nurse, attempting to build my business in cannabis, and I got called into the office and was told, like, you cannot be so visible, because I was on the news all the time, because I was not only a business person in this industry, and I think it's really important as an aside, I was not only a business person in this industry, I was an advocate. I worked to help create the industry that we see now in Connecticut. It didn't go perfectly the way I wanted, but I was a part of that conversation. So anyway, you know, I was working as an advocate. And they told me I could not work for them and be talking about weed or marijuana, you know, and so I had to say, well, this is so important to me, because I was providing access to medical cannabis to my community. I was keeping people safe from losing housing, from being kicked out of school, from not being able to become gainfully employed, you know, so it was important to me. So I sacrificed. So let me tell you, they repoed my BMW. You know, it was a rough time for a sister. But, you know, I always reference God. He's so good. Everything I lost, I got back 3 times. But my journey was a difficult one. You know, I wasn't respected. I wasn't, you know, people weren't paying attention, weren't listening for a long time. And, you know, I had to keep going and keep fighting and keep pushing to promote my business, to promote access to cannabis, to educate the community, because in order for them to buy into our businesses, they have to have a certain level of knowledge, because the propaganda is out there. You know, these myths are out here. And so we have to be able to have the right information and education. So, you know, my journey, I wouldn't change it for the world. Like Margeaux said, I met beautiful people like Margeaux, who we supported each other. Let me tell you, we were 2 women determined to be a part of this industry, not only to change our lives and create generational wealth, because there's nothing wrong with that. We need to be able to do that, but also to educate about this plant and be able to move our communities forward and be change agents because of all the damage that prohibition caused. And so we supported each other, and I would not be where I am today without Margeaux. Like, there were times I couldn't afford a place to stay when we would go to conferences, because we were sponges for information. I'd get a plane ticket, but where are we going to stay? Margeaux say, okay, I got the hotel. And we supported each other through this process. And so as women in this industry, that's the kind of stuff that's really necessary to win, because again, we're not welcomed here. This is not something that, well, I shouldn't say that, but historically, you know, this is not the most welcoming space for women. So now we have to make sure that we create our space and we help each other succeed.
That's truly inspirational, Kebra. We need to talk offline about all of that. My journey, I would say, was grounded in listening. When I decided that I wanted to do something in the space and create change in this space, I didn't know exactly what path I was going to take, right? This industry is so vast and there's a lot of room for a lot of innovation. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I did know that I wanted to support the consumer, because that's my background, and I come from that kind of DTC space. I listened. I wiggled myself into random conferences, cannabis conferences from all parts of the vertical, right? A growers conference randomly in Oregon, you know, a trade show in California. I just stuck myself everywhere to understand this market and this landscape, and then started networking and listening to everything everyone in the industry had to say. Then I started, and I realized there was a lot of white space and disconnect between the industry and the consumer. And I was like, okay, maybe that's where I can really shine. And so I started by building a community of consumers. And I had nothing at the time and no plan. I literally created an Instagram account. I brought on a medical advisor, Dr. June Chin, a fellow AAPI woman in this space who's been an integrative physician for 20 plus years. We all know her. She came on and she said, let's do this, where let's educate consumers in the right way. And Instagram was our vehicle for it. And we saw a community quickly starting to form around that. And then our DMs and emails started getting flooded with questions from each of these consumers. And so I was the one concierging in analog format. And that's how HiVi evolved, you know, over the past year and a half. You know, emails and DMs became a website. with expanded knowledge and articles. That became a curation, a marketplace of products. And, you know, it wasn't intentional, but we realized the products that we were vetting and verifying as, you know, HiVi standard were, you know, women, POC and queer owned. And we were really proud about that. And then, you know, we went from analog concierge services to becoming an algorithmic data-backed concierge service that can help people at scale. And then, you know, come summer, we're going to now be last mile and deliver cannabis products to people too. So the journey has been an iterative one. But I think I would say listening and understanding what the true needs are so that whatever you endeavor to do in this space is adding value, not just noise, is really important.
Thank you so much. That's extremely important. Going to the chat, I see that there was a comment from Frankie just about growth mindset and letting women know that they don't have to be experts in the industry. An interesting part of my journey early on, when I joined Women Grow, the head of Women Grow was Leah Hayes at the time. And I remember she was allowing women to do like 5 to 15-minute one-to-ones with her. And at the time, she's the head of Women Grow. She's an attorney. You know, she went on to become a CEO. She's a consultant. Like, she was a lot of things, and I was extremely impressed. And I came from the background of project management, where experts validate other experts. And cannabis is quite different in that way. Like, people just show up like, hey, I'm a master grower, or whatever. And there's not as much vetting to some degree in this space. But like, what kind of questions are you asked most frequently about, you know, your participation here, or how to participate here?
I think, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, a lot of people ask me, you know nothing about cannabis, you know nothing about the history, the product, you know, the extracts, the terpenes, and the endocannabinoid system, you know. But yeah, I'm learning, right? You know, I'm learning like everybody else. And I'm learning because I wanted to create an environment that was at a pace that everybody could understand and that was easy to interpret, wasn't intimidating. But I guess the important thing that I've learned and I've taken on board is that people are accepting me from the fact that I don't pretend to be an expert, and they're welcoming because I'm saying, hey, listen, teach me. I want to learn so I can help others. So I think because I've come with that approach, it's slightly different. And people in the industry, particularly men, you know, they, as you, Kebra, I think you said, you know, everybody, they're like, oh yeah, I know everything, but I've got absolutely no qualifications. Oh, I'm a grower and I know how to grow the plant, and, you know, they haven't got a clue. But I think coming from a different angle and feeling like, you know, it's okay for me to look stupid because I simply don't know the answer, but coming to experts, you know, all of you guys, then it's easier for our community and for people around me to feel like I'm okay with that.
Let's see. I guess I could say I wish I had that luxury. I don't feel like I have that luxury to not, and I'm being 100% honest. Like, you know, in my state, like, people are looking for answers and they're looking for me to have them. But I am blessed that I position myself in such a way that I do have access to that information, and I'm able to disseminate that to others. But I do encourage, so in Connecticut, our conversations are a little different. It's not necessarily about ancillary businesses or businesses that support the cannabis industry. Most of the conversations right now are about licensing. They want to get a license. And I do tell people, well, did you read the legislation? Number one, like, did you know, make sure, do you know anything about the cannabis plant? Okay, you know, like, for instance, let's just say I am pursuing a cultivator license. I just killed a cactus. So I don't need to necessarily know how to, I know, isn't it terrible? I see y'all really had a moment. Let me just show you her old living. She used to live here, but she died here. But anyway, you know, girl. And she died anyway. But so what I'm saying is, you don't have to have the knowledge to be able to necessarily grow, be a master grower. you know, you need to have CEO skills, business skills. You need to be able to know how to manage a large scale company that makes several different products, a distribution, all these things. And if you don't have those basic pieces of information, I don't think that you should necessarily go for some licenses right now in this round, you know, but that's just me, you know. But as far as, you know, people who are learning and want to teach others as they are pursuing, you know, more knowledge in this industry, I think that's great, you know, that, and we're ever learning, it's ever growing. Like people have called me an expert or referred to me as such, but I know I'm ever learning. So, you know.
I get asked questions on like how do I start in this industry? You know, how do I build in this industry? And I think the first thing I tell everyone is to understand this industry, right? It's very different from fashion, beauty, you know, healthcare. It is its own unique beast, and it is a beast, so strap in for that too. But I think it's having that foundational knowledge of how this industry works, what all the levels of the vertical are, and how, you know, people engage and operate in this space is important. You don't need to be an expert on everything, but just understand that this is how this industry works. You know, I think that the closest industry parallel to this is probably liquor. So, you know, taking a look at how that industry has evolved, right? It's different, but, you know, from prohibition to now, I think that there are some parallels. And then I think it's about networking and knowing the right people, because it is so new. The community is very tight knit, and you can glean a lot of support and knowledge and not have to make the mistakes that all of us have already made if you ask and ask for help and have an open mind about it. And I'm an open book. Like anyone and everyone I know who has helped me through this journey, I would be happy to share and introduce you to for anyone who is interested in this space. So I will put my email in the chat, and, you know, if you want to email me offline, I'm happy to. It's an industry that requires the support of each other, and you know, a lot of questions asking and support. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Lucinda, what do you think are some common misconceptions about either the industry or just your role here in the industry?
Oh gosh, where do we start? Obviously the natural one is understanding that it is a natural plant. You know, it's been around for thousands of years. Everybody thinks, I think the new world cannabis, as we like to call it, it makes it a new product, makes it a new thing, makes it a new buzzword, if you like. It's not. It's been around for generations, and it's here for generations. I think that's probably the biggest one that I hear all the time, particularly around me here in the UK. You know, people are like, but CBD's like a drug, you know, you can't take that openly. You can't walk around the street. You can't do this, you can't do that. And I'm like, why not? Why is it any different to, you know, use Eunice's point about liquor? You know, people don't think of liquor as a drug. It is, you know. We take all these medicines every day, or some of us do, I don't anymore, you know, take medicines every day. And people forget that that's doing damage to you. You know, the plant and the products consumed in the right way, the right dosing with the right guidance and right education doesn't do that to us. So I think they're my two biggest things, you know, bugbears, if you like, that people come to me with all the time.
So I get questions and have to correct a lot of information on two levels. So either as a nurse and I consider myself a cannabis nurse. So one of the main things that I hear still to this day, which every time it gets so under my skin, is when people ask me or they say, well, I hear that cannabis is a gateway drug. And, you know, I'm like, oh, we still going here with it. But, you know, I do take the time to make sure that I educate people and let them, you know, understand that it is not, and that has been debunked. And then as far as business, one of the most common industry misconceptions is that this is some big money grab, that you're going to open a dispensary, instantly become rich, and, you know, go skipping into glory. And it just does not work like that. It takes a lot of work. There's a lot of times where you may not be making money, you know, you're going to be losing money. There is opportunity to grow and build to that, but this is not an instant get rich industry at all. Me and Margeaux would be billionaires by now if that was the case.
It has strengthened my character and resolve considerably. So
I would say that I get the same question, kind of industry facing question about, you know, how do I get in and get out with like my bags of cash? I think if you're trying to build in this space in an ethical, intentional way, that money doesn't come quick because the consumer is not there yet, right? I think that we're still in the education phase for the consumer, where they need to feel educated, empowered, and comfortable about consuming cannabis. And then once that stage has been achieved, that's when you'll start to see people really normalizing consumption and shopping it and incorporating it into their lifestyle. And so it'll take time. If you're trying to come into the industry with like, you know, a mid to low tier product, high THC, and just sell it at a really cheap price, okay, maybe that is a fast plan. But for all of us women who are building intentionally, I don't think that that's like really the end goal anyway. From the consumer side, one common myth I always come across beyond, is CBD going to get me high? Because we all know that question too. But the second most often asked question is, does consuming THC mean I will get high? And that's not true, right? We are seeing much more research coming out about microdosing, small levels of THC, which doesn't necessarily intoxicate you, but you can still reap the benefits of these cannabinoids and terpenes. And so when I work with new users, I talk about this all the time, where we can try with a 0.5 milligram or 1 milligram of THC, or a ratio of THC to CBD that can actually help with, you know, anxiety or sleep or whatever you're dealing with. Of course, formulation really matters, without you actually ever feeling high from THC. So I know THC can be intimidating for folks, but it's not just a path to just get high, right? There's a lot that comes from it if used consciously.
thank you so much. So the question following this question is going to be about capital. But before we get to capital, how did you just build like equity and influence in yourself in this industry? How did you make yourself an expert in your particular lane here that led you to, you know, even the fourth floor, for example?
Well, the fourth floor is recommended by a couple of ladies actually I met at a conference, a NECAN last year actually. I just hadn't got to my bottomless list, but you know, I was really recommended to get in touch because I knew that it was going to help me network, meet people like you, and establish myself in a community that I'm far from, obviously locality, but also an expertise in my own education. So I think the fourth floor has helped me hugely in the 3 months that I've been part of it, by just being connected to people in all manners, whether it's technology, whether it's consumer facing, whether it's community building, so many different things. So if you know, people here in the UK, I've been asking everyone to join because it's so important and so valuable, and has been so valuable to me. And I think in terms of kind of, you know, becoming an expert, as I said earlier, you know, we surround ourselves with expert curators, people who really understand the products from the grow all the way through to the dispensaries. And my business partner and I knew that we would need to do that because we're business people, we're not industry experts. And I think we're blessed in the fact that we have people who are humanized, male and female, working with groups of nurses as well, has massively helped me particularly to really understand the challenges that are out there. So I think it's about surrounding yourself with a community of people who can help you start your business, develop your business, and realize your dream to whatever that might be. And in our case, it's really like with Eunice, building a community for the consumer to really understand and be helped and guided to consuming. So I think really for me, it's been meeting so many different industry experts and being blessed to be around people who can help us develop and realize our dream. Hopefully that answers the question.
You asked about belief in self, and if I'm completely honest, like I used to say, well, I'm just a nurse. I'm not a businesswoman. I didn't really have that belief in myself. I didn't really feel like I could change policy, change legislation. I didn't think that I had that capability at all. But I did have faith in God, and I felt like he had placed me in a position. And little did I know that everything that I didn't know I had was already in me. And it was just through these experiences, these challenges, getting in this industry, that I did gain that belief in self. That now, as I'm facing the opportunity to be a CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, I feel like I'm prepared, especially because I was referred to the fourth floor by Margeaux, who really knew that I wanted some support in being a CEO, having a good board, knowing what to look for and building that board, knowing to who I want to look for in a board member. And so I really have not always had the confidence that I have now as a businesswoman. And I know I probably will need more to deal with some of these boardrooms I'm going to be facing. But I have been blessed since I've been in this industry that I have been connected to organizations that focus on strengthening and empowering women, and people within those organizations have strengthened and empowered me. And so now, as I'm moving into a new level of business and a new level of responsibility and ownership, I'm supported also by organizations like the fourth floor, making sure that I have a good board, that I am a good CEO, and that I am able to run my corporate entity well.
Mirroring what both Lucinda and Kebra said, I believe in that very much. I don't know if it's because it's me, my personality, or if it's because I'm a woman, but part of my confidence comes from me truly owning and feeling like I belong and that I understand this industry and this space and that a CEO. So I did a lot of research about this industry, all the science, all of the industry knowledge. I consumed all of that first. So that I felt like, okay, I get it. I internally understand how to build. And then this is my second company, but I think it's always really supportive when I network and find fellow entrepreneurs. So I'm a part of a few different women's communities for entrepreneurs, which is always very uplifting, and we can always lean on each other for support. Communities like the fourth floor also immensely supportive and remind us that we're all in it together and we're all building. It doesn't matter if it's cannabis or elsewhere, we're all fighting the same uphill battle. And it feels great to surround ourselves with the right people. And that's what pushes me forward.
Thank you so much. As far as me on my personal journey, part of it was that I just started talking about it really early, like before most professional people were willing to come out and say and do certain things. So I kind of like beat the curve in there. So like we can get Margeaux to come talk about it. And so I was just there. And then I really felt like it was important to be in the room and to hear conversations. Like, this is a very unique industry. You can't always Google the answers or the right answers. And because I was in policy, I did a natural transition to lobbyist, and I became a lobbyist for a trade association in the state of Michigan. And so I kind of learned the lay of the land of all the licensees. And then I did a lot of work with NCIA. And so that is another trade association. So I had an in-state pool of people, I had a national pool of people, and then I became a board of director for the Minority Cannabis Business Association. And so that let me, be more involved even in federal policy. I just really always wanted to be in the room, like have a muse. So first disclaimer, I'm not going to have that ending, but my muse was Littlefinger in Game of Thrones. Like, I am going to climb this ladder of chaos into, my fortune. I am going to have the bags of cash also. So I know maybe not the other people who just got on, but we're coming, they're in my timeline. So with that as a transition, what has your journey been like in raising capital and financing your endeavors in this industry?
Not an easy one, number one, and first and foremost. I think we did it slightly the other way. We actually did the development first before we raised, and we're actually going through a raise at the moment. So we privately funded to get us to a point where we knew that we had something that we could market, and we could go to VCs or we could go to angels and ask for money, essentially, to help us with the ongoing development, which is the process that we decided to go down. We are very fortunate to have some financial backing to get us that far, but it's been really, really difficult. And the thing that surprised me over the last few months, and maybe this is the fourth floor, and I'm sure it probably is suddenly a turnaround from my male co-founder not really getting received in a positive way, to people wanting to actually meet me, which is, you know, back to self-belief and stuff. Seriously, I mean, it's really surprised me all of a sudden. And as soon as women particularly hear that there's a female founder in there, they suddenly turn their heads and sort of have been looking at me going, I want to talk to you. Why are you doing this? Why are you in this? So it is starting to change for us. It's been a long journey, and it's not an easy one to raise money in this industry. You know, there are so many dispensaries, so many businesses popping up all over the place. And I think it's about being different, standing out and defining what your mission is. And that's been the real kind of kicker for me, is ensuring that by being involved with Fourth Floor, networking, getting to know more people, particularly women in the industry, attending conferences and being recognized for being a new brand in the industry, which is not easy. And I'm sure all of you guys have been through that journey. But to be recognized and accepted, number one, and then to be putting forward a mission that everybody can relate to with your raise or with your business that you're trying to create or you have created, and you're just trying to grow it. So it's not an easy one, and I'm sure Kebra is about to add to that wholeheartedly, and Eunice too. But I think patience and just keep knocking,
So for CannaHealth, I never really raised any money. I never tried. I was self-funded. You heard me say that they repossessed my car. So there were a lot of financial challenges along the way, but I felt like what I had to offer the community, I needed to kind of stay in a position where I didn't have to also succumb to the wishes of investors. I give away a lot of certifications. I do a lot of community-based things. So now, as I'm looking towards license in an adult use market here in Connecticut, that has been different. At one point, I was attempting to find funders, which, you know, in a new state, there are a lot of people who are interested, but it is hard to work around some of the regulatory requirements or aspects of even applying. So, you know, for instance, like in the state of Connecticut, a lot of people who are applying as social equity applicants, they're having a difficult time getting people to commit the full amount of what it'll cost to fund their business. And they need that in order to even apply. So you have to apply with 100, knowing who your backers will be. No one can be added later. So as you can see, they've kind of disabled social equity applicants in that they don't get a golden ticket. You know, if they were able to apply for a lottery, get a provisional license, they'd be able to now raise funds and get their businesses funded a whole lot easier than with this possibility of a license. For me, what I had to do was partner with a larger company. And that was the way in which I was able to get my businesses financed. The legislation in my state afforded me that opportunity. And I was able to use my industry experience as a negotiating tool to get myself a really good deal. But again, that was only because of the way the legislation was written that I was really able to take advantage in a way in which fundraising really wasn't an issue for me.
For me, HiVi is currently bootstrapped. I'm in a fundraising seed round now. but bootstrapped it from the beginning because like I mentioned, I wanted to listen and learn what my path was in this space first and foremost. And actually part of bootstrapping made it really fun. Like you get really scrappy, you have to really understand this industry, you have to get really creative. And I honestly think that this industry is like growing and expanding because of creative and just like never been done before ideas. And so the bootstrapping phase, I think I actually loved it, even if it was kind of a challenge, financially, because it really helped me understand and really focus in on what I'm building in this space, and be intentional about it. Fundraising now, because of the time that I've spent to build the MVP out, to build a proof of concept out and have really solid metrics to show and prove that we can do this, has been helpful in our conversations. HiVi is a part of the EASE Momentum Accelerator this year. Asian women represent out of the 10 in the cohort, right? But things are shifting, and I think putting in the work, which isn't the philosophy for a lot of folks, but putting in the work before you reach your hand out for the cash, I think speaks volumes, and it's starting to show for it. Having conversations with angels has been seamless and a lot of fun. Speaking to funds, yeah, it is challenging. I mean, this is a challenging industry, and I think a lot of funds who invested back in 2015 to 2018 thinking that this was a quick money grab gold rush are now hitting the harsh reality, which is making the climate of the funds a little bit more timid and hesitant. But it's all about, like Lucinda said, is staking your claim and point of differentiation, showing that you have the conviction and the know-how to do it. And there's a lot of money out there, and I don't get discouraged just because everyone says this industry is hard.
Yes, thank you so much for that. I mirror some of that as well. I was very much so bootstrapped originally, and then I was the recipient of a $50,000 social equity grant from Gage in 2021. But there is a lot of nuance to investment in the cannabis space. The model that Kebra described, a license is backed by real estate, so it's a little bit different than people who are really banking on like our personal brand. Like, do you want to invest in me is what the nuance is here. And that's what led Kebra even to her deal, but eventually there's a brick and mortar building and a license behind that. Some of this is conceptual, and so building yourself, your network, your presence is very, very important. And even me, myself, like I'm still navigating this very, very much so. One, I'm not a person, like I don't do pitch competitions well. Like this panel, amazing. I'll do a panel. Pitch competition is like, so it's a little bit nuanced when it comes to, how do you approach investment? And also when you talk about like even seed rounds, essentially, like you've invested to a certain point yourself to have proof of concept, and then to take that concept beyond. So I believe in all of you, and I encourage all of you. I'm not sure if there's any more questions from the audience. I'd love to answer those for the panel. Okay.
And Margeaux, if it's helpful, so you guys have been doing a fantastic job answering questions, as they've come into the chat. It did seem like there were a number of questions talking about, the shifting landscape, like the fact that it's state by state. So I don't know if maybe you wanted to speak about that a little bit, just the hurdles that the regulatory landscape presents. And that was one. And then also transferable skill sets. That was another. And then there was another one, comments about discriminating and oppressing minorities, or, just the racial inequity. So anyway, I throw you those three in case you want to grab one of them for a last response.
Sure. So
how about I jump in on the before you get to racial? I quickly can say there was a question about what did you just say? It was the one before it. So she
racial inequity was the last one.
And transferable skill sets.
Transferable skill sets. That's what I want to talk about. Yes, everything you need in any other industry, you need in cannabis. You need accountants, you need lawyers, you need realtors, you need plumbers, you need electricians. Shall I go on? So everything is transferable to cannabis.
Yes. The social equity part is very nuanced, and it's complicated for two reasons. Like, one, there are inarguably historical harms that actually did happen and that continue to this day. Right now, there's somebody right now today who's going to win their cannabis license, and there's somebody in America who's going to go to jail also on the exact same 420 day. And so there's a very broad spectrum there. And have been very, have been very involved in a lot of conversations around equity, but even myself, I've had to sometimes separate the two. I am definitely an advocate for diversity and equity and people participating in this industry. I am also an expert in policy and compliance. And so when people would approach me like, oh, we're going to put you on a social equity panel and you're going to talk about returning citizens, even though I've never been to jail. And so I'm like, I'm not going to have that conversation anymore. And I had to come to a point in my career where I really decide what things I'm going to speak about and what I'm going to represent, because as a minority person, it's very, very easy for you to become railroaded. It's very easy for you to want to be an advocate for a group of people that you may not be part of that group necessarily, but you're only being given opportunities to speak on that particular group of people. And so what I used to do is I would say, well, like, I'm not going to speak, but I know this person who's actually that, and that person, sorry, is going to have to respond. This person is going to respond on those questions, and I'm going to respond on the questions that I am personally an expert on. It is also relevant to honor and realize those structures exist when it does come to capital raise and funding. I speak on a regular basis about predatory lending. I am an entrepreneur. Like, I'm willing to have the conversation and do the deal. I am not willing to be handled or mishandled when I've built a thing that's very, very real. Like, it took a lot of sacrifice to be here today and to come to this particular place and space with my ideas, my efforts, my networks, and my connections. And so I'm going to leverage all of those, appropriately. And I would invite, any of the other women on the panel to discuss, how they feel just about equity in the space. So I don't know, Lucinda, Kebra.
I live in a state that has cannabis laws with equity language in it. I do feel like equity is sort of like a fantasy thing where, and I'm speaking of legislation, not the hearts of people who fight for it, but, for instance, let me give you an example. Our social equity cultivator license, you have to qualify as social equity, which means you cannot have made more than $236,000 a year, but it costs $3 million. How is that social equity? Okay, so that's what I feel about social equity.
You were supposed to be saving, Kebra.
I think, in Massachusetts, obviously, the social equity licenses are being doled out at the moment. And, we're trying to work with a couple of people who do have social equity licenses for delivery. But it's almost like they want you to do this. They want your business in the state. There's a place for everybody. But there just doesn't seem to be a right path to success. And, people are given these social equity licenses in Massachusetts, and, it's so restricted about how you can use them. And as you say, how much money, how many delivery licenses you can have in the state with one social equity license. It just doesn't seem to be a fair environment. And, you know, we've been talking to different people, and I've been speaking to a couple of ladies actually who are starting delivery businesses in Massachusetts, and they are really having a hard time against men who are linked to dispensaries. And, you know, it's almost like they've got that foot up, yet where they're having to really start at the bottom. It just doesn't seem to be a very equal playing field to me. And it concerns me, given how new social equity is in Massachusetts, particularly, and obviously in other, you know, all of your states, that it's just not going to be successful because it doesn't have the right footing to start off with. And it's not really setting any of us up for success. It's just my.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's the wraparound services, right? It's not just about rewarding someone with a license, but it's about providing all the resources or know-how or support for that business to succeed. I'm curious and excited for these new states as they legalize, especially New York, to see how they come up with their plans to incorporate that. And so that it's not just a performative kind of like, yeah, we support social equity, you know, we've got so many licenses to give out to folks. But yeah, I know that we're over time, so just wanted to make that point. And I think what we can do as folks in the industry is to just continue to support each other and support the right founders and support the right paths, so that we can continue to build and not fully rely on waiting for the government to come around.
And I know we almost are out of time. Social equity isn't just about business. You know, this is a business panel. We're talking about businesses, but there are other elements like people getting out of prison, like monies going into communities. So we'll see if that's real. We'll see if the monies actually make it to communities. That's going to be the test for social equity going forward.
Yes. Thank you, ladies, so much for being participants. You were all absolutely wonderful.